Good morning, Achoja Warriors. Another great day where we will chase happiness by rising to the challenge. Today, we're going to talk about that feeling, right? Like sometimes we're motivated by the feeling, but other times we find ourselves deflated by the feeling. And we're going to talk today specifically, what do I do when I don't feel like doing anything? Because there are lots of days like that, especially somewhere along this journey. When you're building the foundation, when you're gaining momentum, it becomes very difficult for us to keep going and dreading the fact that sometimes we lose that momentum and we find ourselves starting all over. And when that happens, it becomes very difficult for us to regain that steam that we need, right? It's part of the reason why sometimes when we start a new diet, we have this energy, we feel great, we're doing great, we're losing a bunch of weight, we're feeling a bunch of energy, and then we have this trip, or we get sick, or something happens that throws off the momentum, and then we end up losing that habit, or at least we're teetering. We're somewhere in the middle now, where we used to wake up every day excited to go to the gym or to work out or whatever it was we're doing, go on our walk, eating healthy. Well, now that I traveled, I didn't eat healthy that weekend. And then when I got sick, I wasn't able to go to the gym or whatever was going on in your life. It created that window where now you have a decision where you have to choose between, am I going to get back on this train, regain my steam, or do I not feel like doing anything, right? Like my body doesn't feel great. I was sick, so my body aches. I was traveling, so I'm tired. Things are going on in my life that makes it difficult for me to be in the mindset that I once had. And then what ends up happening is we slowly fade away from that. And I can tell you for me personally that I know that the when that window starts to close and I'm like, well, I don't feel like doing this, and I start fading back into my old habits, the first week or so, I'm usually like, I didn't do anything this week and I still feel pretty good. I still look pretty good. My weight is still within a good range. So then you're telling yourself, well, maybe I can work out less and still have the results, right? Like wouldn't that be great? You do less and get more. But what we really need to understand is, and what we really need to tell ourselves, and what I've started telling myself, is the results this week are based on what I did do last week or what I did do 10 days ago, right? That as I'm gaining this momentum, that if you just push the brakes on a train, it doesn't immediately come to a dead stop. If you slam the brakes on your car, it doesn't immediately come to a dead stop. That momentum is going to push you a few days, maybe even a week or two further along. But I can't guarantee you that within a month, 6 months, a year, you're going to realize that the decision that you had made does actually have a negative impact, that it is that you are going back into the old habits, that you are losing all the strides, all the gains that you had. So if you want to get yourself to do something when you don't feel like doing anything, then you really have to start by telling yourself, well, that especially that first week, the results that I have right now are based on the activity I did a week ago, a month ago, however long ago, whatever that timeline is. You have to make sure that you understand these results are not because I took this week off. These results are because I busted my butt the past month. And if I want to have a good month next month, I have to continue building on what I've already done. If I do not, then I'm going to have, whether it's in a week or 2 months or 3 months, that I'm going to eventually reap what I sow. That eventually, the fact that I have stopped whatever that path is that I was on, that is going to cause me to be on a different path, right? Like every moment of our life, we are either getting a little bit better or a little bit worse. You'll find that people are rarely just sitting in the exact same spot. And so, what I find often happens is we take one step forward and one step back a lot. And so, we feel like, okay, well, things are pretty good, I'm okay. And then sometimes we take two steps forward and one step back. And so, we feel like, well, I put in two steps and I only gain half of the distance. And so, that becomes frustrating within itself. But then when you start taking steps back, it starts kind of working that same way where it's two steps back, one step forward. But then eventually, as momentum builds, you find yourself taking 10 steps, 15 steps, 20 steps. But it becomes very difficult for us to get to that point. So, first and second, I want you to understand that, okay, things are going to happen. Things are going to throw me off my track. But with that said, it doesn't mean that I have to allow that to spiral out in my life, right? It's definitely okay to say, you know what? I lost that weekend because of the holiday, or I lost these few days because I was sick. But that doesn't mean you have to leave the mindset. So what I would often do is if the mind is willing and the body is weak, then I would focus on the mind. So there are studies out there that talks about the idea that there were a group of people. There was three groups of people on like a basketball, and they had them take shots. And so what they did is they had one group take 0 shots. They did absolutely nothing. They didn't think about basketball. They had the second group actually take the free throw shots, where they took shots every day for a set amount of time in the gym. And the third group did not take shots, but they visualized themselves taking shots. They saw the form of their hand coming up and the release of the ball. Like, they saw everything that was going on as if they were practicing. And when the results came out at the end of the study, the people who visualized themselves shooting the free throws and the people who actually shot the free throws had about the same improvement. So let me say that again. So the people who did not take a free throw shot and just visualize themselves taking the shot had the same amount of improvement as the people who did take the shot. Now, the people who did not think about it or practice, they were blown out of the water, right? Like, you have to naturally be able to say, well, that's not going to work. And it did not work. So there's no spoilers there. Now, there's two caveats that I want to make on that. First is to understand how powerful your mind is. That whatever you are telling yourself, whatever you're thinking about, whatever you're focusing on, that has a dramatic impact in the results that you create. So we're going to go into the third one, but the idea is, if I don't feel like doing something, what am I thinking? What am I telling myself? What is it that I'm struggling with mentally that is translating into my physical inaction? Second, you want to understand that these people, if you're visualizing what you're doing, that you are going to get the same results as someone who isn't. But understand two things. One is the visualization is just a small window, right? On the bottom of that window is action. On the top of that window is action. I do not want you saying, Dre, I visualized for 366 days about going to the gym and it didn't work for me, right? Do not do that. Do not message me. Do not make any comments about that. That is not what I'm saying. What I am saying is, if you are about to lose your momentum and there are a few days of a gap where you're not sure how you're going to bridge it, then I would say in that moment, visualizing your activities will have the same impact as you being able to engage in them. So we're talking about just the little bridge, the few days, right? We're not talking about the whole year. Please do not think that I'm telling you to take the whole year off of inaction, but you just think about taking action, because there's a lot of thinkers out there and we're not trying to add any more to that. But we are saying that if you have that gap, that you should be okay and that you won't fall off when you're teetering, as I mentioned earlier, because you'll be engaged mentally. And so you'll get back on the train because in your mind, you've never gotten off of it, right? So I hope that makes sense. And then we'll jump into the third one, which is this overall idea that the way my mind works and the way that it creates a certain reality around me based on the things that I'm telling myself, the things that I'm thinking, and how I perceive my interactions with the world, that it can help or hinder you. Your mind can be your ally or your enemy. It can either be all about your goal and it can show you opportunities to accomplish it, or it can hinder it and it's always telling you why you cannot. But the important thing that you have to understand is this is not something that you just wake up and have to accept. Like, if I have a good day, then I'm going to crush it. And if I wake up and I don't feel that great, then I'm going to sleep in, right? Like, you do not have to accept those choices. If whatever you do is, I would say, let's prepare for that feeling, because it's going to happen. It's natural to happen. But let's put some sort of fail safe in place that allows me to borrow motivation when I'm running out, when I just don't feel that great. So what I often do is, my wife, Yams, she is like my Ace Boone Coon, where she's always looking out for me. And if I can get her to commit with me, then she really holds me accountable. And so I often find that if I'm struggling, like, it's like, you know what, I'll let her know. I'll be like, Yams, I want to wake up tomorrow at 5 a.m. And then when my alarm goes off, if I'm about to push snooze and then I look over and she's getting up, it helps me to get up too. If I tell her I want to do it and she's not getting up, because oftentimes she does get up with me because she knows that that helps me. But if she's not for some reason, then she will kind of give me that nudge where she'll be like, hey, you said you wanted to get up at 5. I've heard your alarm go off twice. What's going on? And oftentimes that's all I need, just that little bit of accountability, a little bit of encouragement, a little bit of belief in me, right? Because in my mind I'm telling myself all the reasons why it's not a big deal. Dre, you've done like 2-3 weeks of this, you're fine. What's one day gonna do? You'll be okay. But then when you have someone that's in the moment with you and they're like, look, I'm getting up so I can keep going while you wait, but I'm gonna keep going. Or two, hey, you said you were going to do this. Are you a man of your word or not? And so those are things that do motivate me. Now, everybody's slightly different like that. These things may matter, they may not. But what I am saying in this example is let's find something that does motivate you in those situations where you don't have that feeling, where either you can text or call someone, or maybe I know someone who does like a post every single morning that lets everybody know that, yes, I woke up at this time, and then people like it, and then things like that, right? There is a lot of options available for you to be able to borrow that energy when you don't feel like you have any. And so you just need it for a little bit, right? Like this is not going to be something that I need to do all the time, but this is something that you want to prepare when you don't need it. Like you find that about most cool things in life, that you have to prepare when you don't need it, right? Like the idea of insurance, you can't get it the day that you need it, right? The day, oh my gosh, I was diagnosed with cancer. Well, that's going to be the most difficult day for you to get it, right? You get certain things when you don't need it, and then when you do need it, it's already in place. So what I mean by this is if you find yourself in a situation where everything is great, rainbows and Skittles, you feel really good, then let's start those habits then, so that when you don't feel that great, you already have it in place. You don't want to be looking the days that you don't feel like waking up, well, who can I reach out to? How can I motivate myself? Because in that moment, it's going to be very difficult. You are most likely not going to find that motivation. So you do want to make sure that you have this I'll say apparatus in place that makes it very difficult for you to revert back to your old life. And so that's always something that I encourage, because motivation and energy, right? These things are going to go up and down. We're going to have good days. We're going to have bad days. We're going to have meetings where everything goes exactly as we plan. And we're going to have times where people stand us up and you can see through the window that they're there, but they're not opening the door for you, right? Like this is just life. And so you also have to prepare for the times when life happens, right? I mean, so I do want to encourage you with that. And the last thing, and that I do want you guys to understand, is sometimes you have to make sure that you understand the gravity with the weight of that decision. And so what I mean by that is sometimes you have to say, if I don't get myself to do this, how can I get the life that I'm trying to get? Right? If I don't save, if I don't work out, if I don't spend time with my family, how can I get the result that I want? And you'll find that if you start weighing the gravity of things, then it makes it more real for you, where you're sitting there in your mind, you're having a philosophical discussion. Well, this one day won't hurt, or these 3 days don't matter, or everything's still fine. But if you really just ask yourself what's at the root of it, do I want the results that I promised to myself? Right, so last time we're talking about your promise to other people, but now we're talking about your promise to yourself. If you have made a promise to yourself, then why not keep it? Right? Like, why not create the environment that you said that you want to have? When you had that awful moment and you were thinking, this won't happen again, what was in that moment that's not here now? And whether you need to make a video to yourself where you just remind yourself, this is what happened on this day and this is why we are striving for this, and you just play that video in those moments when you're struggling, or whether you need to write it down and you just need to have it in your pocket like a little index card that reminds you of something, you really have to remember what it was that made you wake up one day and say, today is the last day of yesterday and today is going to be the first day of tomorrow. Right? Like you really have to make sure you understand that, because over the journey you may forget. And then when you're waking up, it's like, well, I don't really know why I'm doing this. I've already lost some weight. I've already seen some results. Why am I doing this? And then the question is, were you doing it just to lose a little bit of weight, or was it something else that happened? Were you doing it just because you need a little bit of extra money? Or was there something else that you were going to do with that money, right? What was it that had you say enough is enough? And I often find it was not the little gains that you have made in this short amount of time. It was something much bigger, a life goal. And so you focus and understand that the actions I'm taking today will create the environment that allows me to create the life goal that I've set for myself. And that's going to be a mindset moment. Always thankful for our time together. If you have enjoyed this, I invite you to like, share, comment on the change that you have committed to yourself, the promise that you have made to yourself, and the why that you're going to keep going with. Until next time, continue blessings on your journey to become the champion of your life.